Coming up, were warning signs missed before this week's mass shooting in Louisville?
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 11.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. The family of the shooter involved in Monday's mass shooting in Louisville says he was seeking counseling for anxiety and depression before killing 5 people at the Old National Bank downtown. Today we asked EKU professor of psychology Dustin Wygant why the suspected shooter was not identified as a threat to society by counselors before he went on the shooting spree. Garrett Weimer reports.
The field of psychology and psychiatry, when we think about predictions of violence, this is very difficult to make these predictions.
EKU professor of psychology Dr. Dustin Wygant says the real issue is that it's a complicated matter, linking psychological mental health to acts of violence. He says in Kentucky there are very few ways people and mental health professionals can bring attention when people are showing an elevated risk for violence, but he says it's also up to the mental health professional to ask key questions.
It really comes down to mental health professionals knowing what to look for and asking the right questions so that we can, thoroughly assess for one's risk for violence.
Dr. Wygant says if you have a loved one who is having mental issues and you're concerned about them harming themselves or others, there are some key indicators. He says they include increased substance abuse, being more disengaged from others, and feeling more begrudged by others, sort of a me against the world mentality.
It's really those behavioral indicators that are more of a predictor of who might engage in violence versus just having anxiety, having depression, and other types of mental conditions. And it's those kind of situations coupled with rapid access to lethal means that ends up really, being the picture that we see in so many of these cases.
Questions as to why remain, but the doctor says most mental illness patients don't produce a mass shooter situation.
We have to appreciate that millions of people in this country are suffering from mental illness every day. And the vast, vast, vast majority of those individuals will not commit acts of violence. In fact, research shows that people with mental illness are actually at more risk to be harmed by violence than be the perpetrators of violence.
In Richmond, Garrett Weimer, WYMT Mountain News.
Also at Eastern Kentucky University today, a safety fair was held to show students how to stay safe on campus. Students were able to speak with first responders on possible scenarios such as an active shooter situation or a fire inside the dorms.
This could happen at any moment. It could be us, it could be anybody, so we want to make sure that we are prepared.
Student leaders say they hope this event helped create a safer environment for their campus. Impassioned calls for changes to state gun laws continue in Louisville in the wake of Monday's shooting, but many question what kind of restrictions could even be passed in the Republican-dominated Kentucky legislature. State Senator David Yates is the Democratic whip. He and his party are outnumbered more than 4-1 in the Senate, but Yates believes there is a chance to find common ground on issues like mental health and red flag laws. He tells us the important first step is to keep the conversation going.
I don't think the answer is to try to take your handguns away from individuals who are law-abiding citizens. I don't think that someone's coming to say, I'm taking your guns. But we do have to have an open, honest conversation within the community about what is the best approach.
Leaders of both the Kentucky House and Senate did not respond to a request for comment.
Well, a warm day today, and it's still a mild evening all throughout the region as those clouds continue to increase. They're acting like a blanket, keeping things a little milder out there tonight. Here's the view from our studios here in Hazard. 72, the current reading. It's still very mild, even for mid-April. That's not too common. Not too uncommon, but also you don't see it every single day. Current conditions in Pikeville from our Pikeville Medical Center camera, placid, at least through the city. Temperatures remaining mild in some spots. Jackson's still in the mid-70s at this hour, as is Logan. Other areas still in the 60s. We've been watching a few of those showers push through during the evening hours. They've been light, and they'll stay light because we still don't have a ton of moisture in the region yet. That cutoff lows spinning over the Mississippi is going to give us the chance for showers and even a few thunderstorms as we head into tomorrow. That running forecast, best opportunity in the morning between about 9 and noon. After that, showers start to pop. Details on that coming up in a few minutes. Steve?
Evan, thank you. We have an update now to a story we first told you about today on First at 4. We now know a Monticello police officer was the one seriously injured in a crash this afternoon. It happened at the intersection of the Hal Rogers Parkway and Kentucky 30 in London. The roadway was closed for a few hours while officials investigated the crash. Police say a 2017 Nissan SUV driven by 70-year-old Joan Gill and a 2008 Harley-Davidson motorcycle driven by 50-year-old officer Jeremy Thompson collided. Thompson was thrown from the motorcycle during the crash. He was flown to UK hospital. Officials say he is in ICU, conscious and alert, but really banged up. Gill was taken to St. Joseph Hospital in London. No word on her condition. Virginia State Police troopers are investigating a single car crash in Buchanan County. The crash happened Tuesday afternoon on Route 609. They say a 2001 Chevrolet Lumina was traveling south when it ran off the side of the road and flipped in a creek. The driver, 44-year-old Nicholas Vanover, was taken to Buchanan General Hospital where he later died. Officials say he was wearing a seatbelt. A La Follette, Tennessee man was arrested yesterday after 2 people and a dog died in a multi-car crash on Interstate 40. The crash happened in Smith County, Tennessee on March 16th. Officials say a tractor trailer driven by 36-year-old Brandon Lee Brock jackknifed, causing a second crash involving 3 tractor trailers and multiple cars. Brock was arrested in Campbell County and charged with 2 counts of vehicular homicide and 2 counts of criminally negligent homicide. One town in the Big Sandy has added a new vehicle to its fleet of ambulances, meeting a need for the folks who call that area home. WYMT's Jordan Mullins has more from Paintsville, where its city council unveiled the new ambulance earlier this week and spoke to officials about the new unit.
The Paintsville Fire Department in Johnson County staffs its own ambulance crews, and since 2020, EMS calls have grown more common, leading the town's city council to look for solutions.
The number of runs over the past 3 years have increased quite a bit, so we had to have another ambulance to make sure that we could take care of the people in Johnson County and Paintsville.
Its solution, a brand new ambulance. The new unit is a 2022 model with only 11,000 miles. A lot more gas left in the tank when compared to the department's other units.
We are getting some age on some of our equipment, and you have to have a plan to replace those as they get older, so this is a good start in that plan.
The new unit is also a bit smaller, which can better navigate narrow alleys and back roads, but will still have all the necessary gear to classify as an advanced life support or ALS unit.
This one has all the necessary equipment, but it's just a little bit smaller because there's some roads that we have to use ambulances on that we need a smaller vehicle.
Those with the department say the outside is immaculate, but they are still waiting on the equipment and state certification before it's ready to respond to calls.
We are looking forward to put it in service, and our city and county really need this.
Working to better serve the city of Paintsville and all of Johnson County. In Paintsville, Jordan Mullins, WYMT Mountain News.
Chief Edgar Pack Jr. says the department has responded to more than 1,000 calls in 2023 alone, adding the extra ambulance is a vital asset to the community and the county. An Eastern Kentucky murder suspect is in custody after turning himself in. State police in Knox County arrested 40-year-old Brian Smith. He was on the run for nearly 12 hours. Police say they talked with him on the phone and he agreed to turn himself in. He's accused of killing 42-year-old Shelby McIntyre. Officials found her shot to death early this morning at a home on Dr. Parker Lane. They say the two got into a fight when Smith shot her. As we first told you last night, a man accused of killing a Leslie County family nearly 20 years ago is a free man. Clayton Jackson was once convicted of the 2004 murder of 3 children. He was convicted in 2011, but the Supreme Court of Kentucky ruled a member of the jury should have been removed from the case, and the conviction was overturned. Jackson was released from prison on Wednesday, or earlier this week, after years of retrials being postponed for various reasons. Now, with a list of cases ahead of Jackson's, the court in Clay County is struggling to schedule a retrial.
We have either 17 or 18 pending homicide cases right now as we speak. And we have 5 death penalty cases, and those do take more time.
A retrial date for April of 2024 has been set for Jackson, but Commonwealth's Attorney Gary Gregory says he is going to ask for it to be moved up. A Southern Kentucky family wants answers after a deadly dog attack. The incident happened yesterday morning on Slab Vanover Road in McCreary County. 61-year-old Wilma Polly Lee Ridner was killed in the attack. Animal control officers say they rounded up and euthanized all the dogs that were involved, but the sheriff says they are still looking for the owner of the pack.
I'd like justice to be served, but I don't know that it will. It'll take time.
Kentucky law and a McCreary County ordinance says dogs have to be behind a fence or on a 20-foot tether or leash, and they are not allowed to run loose. The Army remembered 9 Fort Campbell soldiers at a memorial service in Clarksville, Tennessee this afternoon. The soldiers died when 2 helicopters crashed last month. Fellow soldiers spoke about the 8 men and 1 woman killed. Governor Andy Beshear also joined the service today, saying on Twitter they were heroes who will always be remembered. Nonprofit CASA of the Appalachian Mountains is needing volunteers to help identify cases where children could be abused or neglected. Part of CASA's mission is to identify the dangerous situations children could be in. Executive Director Kristen Dinsmore Smith says they want to reunify parents and kids, but other routes could be taken if necessary.
When things start changing is when that plan's not being followed, when they're not taking the steps that they've been asked by the court to take in order to be better parents. That's kind of when the goal changes from reunification to potentially adoption or, stay in the system, whatever that might look like.
Dinsmore Smith says becoming a volunteer would require 30 hours of training, but that would be split up into increments. Coming up on Mountain News at 11, students at the University of Pikeville learn about recycling and sustainability here in the Commonwealth.
Plus, continuing to watch the potential for showers returning to the mountains, even in some places tonight. The very latest after this.
You're going to be a mom, and we're here to help every adorably